So this is my summer journal, and I managed to fill it up. I think it was like towards the end of June. When was it? June 17th. And I just finished it up, and it is what, the 20th of September, I think. I filled this up really fast considering the first journal that I started using when I got into using tarot and oracle for journaling. I was already like, I don't know, a year and a half in the making, and I kind of slowly did finish that one up. And then every journal since then has gone faster than the last. It's kind of weird to say goodbye to a journal so soon. I got used to its cover. It was very, very much the summer edition of my journals. The spring one was also like a very perfect spring cover. And that was, to be fair, less pages than this paper blanks journal, so that one was easier to fill up. But if I could do this, what I'm hoping to do with my journals is have them be seasonal, where every season I'm in a new journal. That would be awesome. But if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I will get more into the journal, probably, maybe a little bit towards the end, because I know when I was starting out, that was something that I was like, what is this great arcane mystery of what people do in their journals with the cards? Like, I want to know. I feel like there's something there my brain wants, and I don't know what it is. And so, to be honest, at this point, my practice with my journal has just been an evolution, and that's probably the way it should be. But it's nice to hear what other people do to give you ideas of what to try. So I'll get into that maybe a little bit, but it's probably something I need to do a whole video about at some point, if anybody wants to see that. But first, I'm going to get into the decks. And we're starting with these two because they carried over from spring and were my initial go-tos for like the beginning half of summer. I wouldn't say I don't use them now. It's just that I've been wrapped up in another little kind of project, and Botanica in particular is really such a perfect spring deck for me, but I can see using it year-round because I probably have this in my top 5 decks if I were to torture myself and make that such a list. But this one I just fell in love with. I was compulsed to get it at one point, and I did. And I was kind of worried, like, is this gonna click with me? Because I didn't have a deck that was like this in any way, regardless of subject, that was, you know, so different from sort of an RWS. It felt like a territory I hadn't explored yet with artwork and tarot. So I wasn't sure. I was like, whether or not I know how to read with it right away, like, I want it. So I'm so glad I got it, because I think there is something about it that I needed. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know it. And I found it to be a really beautiful reader once I got to know it. I also found it to be very poetic between the artwork and what I wound up pairing it with, which was Poesis. But the artwork and the way he framed the plants, they seem to evoke emotion to me. I know that this one doesn't hit it off with everyone because it is a different kind of deck, but to me, I just get this sense of poetry with it. If I could figure out what to do with my lighting to make this shine not a thing. Hold on. Alright, that's probably the best I can do right now without driving myself nuts or lighting my hair on fire, so we're gonna stick with that, because I think it's at least clear. But whatever it was that I was saying is basically that I found the artwork to be, I don't know, somehow I just felt the emotion of the plants. I connected with the plants. I don't want to say I'm not a plant person, but like I have a fear of taking care of plants and killing them. And because it's just happened too many times. So this is my access to plants, is what I'm saying, is through artwork. So I wound up pairing it. Let me since this is so much thicker. Let me break it down a little bit here. I wound up pairing it with Poesis most of the time. I occasionally paired it with other things, but these two are my go-to for sure. Poesis is great because it pairs with most things. This deck also paired with a ton of things. It's just that this was my go-to because of the poetry aspect. I really, between the mythology and the elements that he chose in the artwork to incorporate, and sometimes the connections to myth or story or history or anthropology or whatever culture that the objects have, a lot of times made me flesh out a really beautiful poetic meaning for the card. And so I really fell in love with these. And as a pair with Poesis, it just read beautifully. Even if this lighting is a little weird right now. I think they pair beautifully together. I loved how they read together. And I love both of these decks. I got the book for Poesis not that long ago, and I'm really glad because originally, if you don't know about this Oracle deck, you're originally going on to their website to read the poem associated with the card. And that was fine, but I do kind of hate using my phone when I'm reading or trying to be in the zone. So having the book was really a great thing. I could just dive into it and have the words staring back at me. But yeah, I love how these look together. This was my intro to summer, sort of, but this deck was my main babe throughout spring, so I kind of just continued with it. So that's what these look like together. This was my first go-to pair, Botanica and Poesis. He's coming out with an Oracle deck, which I think is like 111 cards. Kevin J. Stanton. If you look up, the Kickstarter is actually, it's not live, but the preview page or whatever you call that is up for viewing. So go follow it. I'm very excited about that. I don't know. I found the art, and I guess there's going to be like an more expanded guidebook with the Oracle deck. Even just the small amount of explanation that's in this sort of pamphlet-y type guidebook a lot of times gave me something really to think about with a card. So that was my experience with it. I love it. It's in my top 5. I haven't used it now in well over a month, and it's still on my altar because I like can't bear to put it away. But I probably am trying to shift around to more autumnal stuff soon, so whenever I can get a grip and just let it go, rest in the cabinet with the other decks, which is literally right next to me and right next to my altar. It's not that big of a deal. But at some point, when I'm ready. Also, I love the box. I love everything about this deck, honestly. The size, the box, the cards, card stock, the way it shuffles. It's just a really cool deck, and I'm very glad that I got it and that I connected with it more easily than I thought. So the next pairing that I worked with was Tarot the Cosmic Seed and then the Odyssey Oracle, which when I got Odyssey, this wasn't the deck I had planned to pair it with. I guess I just, for whatever reason, didn't consider. But now I like it better with this deck than the other one that I had initially thought I was going to pair it with. So, it is what it is. I think Tarot the Cosmic Seed here is going to go mass market. I remember reading that somewhere. I don't know if it has already or not. This is the indie edition. These are the backs. Yep, I just think they pair really beautifully together. just kind of worked out. There was another one, I'm trying to think, I'd have to look in my journal, who else I paired this with. Oh, so actually I paired it with Botanica several times. That was the other one. And I thought it looked really cool with that. I won't pull it out and everything, but they paired really cool together, and I was surprised by that. Didn't think that was gonna work, but it did. And yeah, I don't know, they kind of vibe perfectly together. This Oracle deck, I liked even more than I thought I would. I mean, I knew I'd like the artwork, I just wasn't sure how it was going to read for me. But mostly when working with these, what I did was pull the Oracle card as sort of the topic, like direct me where you want to go type of a thing, and then pull 2 tarot cards in response to that. That's how I would pretty much read with it. I wasn't asking targeted questions most of the time. I probably did once or twice, but... And I did that. That's like one of my default fallbacks if I don't have something else that I'm trying to do, is sort of let the Oracle deck that I'm working with be a topic picker or be a tone setter for the reading, and then I pull cards around that. And that's pretty much what I journal about. But lately I've been doing something else. There's like a ton of different ways to approach it, and I'm in the middle of like a self-guided workshop that I'm doing, and that's been a whole other ball game. It's inspired by a book that I'm reading called Women Who Run with the Wolves, and that's just been like next level and a huge reason why I filled up that journal so much. So... But these two were such a fun pair, very summer vibes. I love Tarot of the Cosmic Seed for a modern deck, because I usually don't love modern, but the court cards in this deck are just so awesome, particularly the King of Wands. I mean, the Court of the Wands, because they tell such a story. And like the first time I looked at all the court cards together, I was like, I want to see all of these movies. Like, I want to know what's going on with these characters in a movie. It just was such a perfect layout. The wand suit is my favorite, I remember from looking at it. But at any rate, that is Tarot of the Cosmic Seed. And Odyssey, this one as an oracle, does this thing where it has a poem here on the first page of the card, and then you get your upright, your reversed, and then something about the art. So I would just go in and pull something, see what this is bringing up, what it's about, and then eventually go to the tarot, and maybe something in here makes me think of a question, or I just want to know as above so below, or something like that. So that's how I would use them. And I found this to be a really like kind of profound oracle in terms of the messages that I got anyway. It was generally like pretty profound. That is the Odyssey Oracle and Tarot of the Cosmic Seed. So the next pairing that I used, kind of in and out, kind of all of these first 3 sets of decks were in and out. I kind of was like bouncing around just depending on the day. This pairing I wound up using the least only because I kept going to it thinking this is going to be a fluffy soft. Like, this is going to be kind of a nice Sunday reading type of a thing, if you get my vibe, and it would always be really deep. Ephemere. I wound up just very luckily finding this, someone selling it for like $20 less than the regular price. It's an authentic deck, it's just, it was getting sold out of a collection or something like that. And so I was like, shoot, I was gonna get True Black first because this, I know, kind of operates in a different system. You know, it's redone the Fool's Journey as the Hero's Journey, which is super cool, and I'm into that, but I have so many study decks that I was like, I should put that second on the list, because, yeah. But, you know, then when I found a good opportunity, it was like, what am I going to do, not get it? So I got it. It is a little tough to shuffle, not gonna lie, of the rose petals that I have. It's a bit tough, and I have powdered it, and I probably should try doing that again. So we'll see, but it's a really beautiful deck, and while I definitely would need to take a lot more time getting to know it and really thinking about the hero's journey and all of that, even getting the majors in readings, I found it really approachable. I mean, the little guidebook has what it has in it. It's not a huge guidebook. It doesn't go super in deep into cards, but it gives you the point. So it gives you the idea. It gives you enough, I think, to understand the cards and have, you know, you can flesh it out for yourself after that. But I just loved how these look together. Now, Dreamgate is my second Danielle Noel deck and my first Oracle by her. And I really love it. I super love it. I really wanted to get her ocean themed one, but I just didn't manage to do it this summer. So I got this because it was mass market and I wanted to see what it was about. I really liked the images I saw. I love her artwork, but it is sometimes that different vibe, and I don't mind star seedy stuff. I really don't. So even if it were to be really star seedy, which I don't know that I would say it is, maybe more so in the guidebook, but not the cards alone. I don't mind that stuff. It's just sometimes hard for me to tap into that place. So something I did with this deck in particular, even before I paired it with Ephemere, was to find the perfect ritual setup to work with it and get my head into that open space where I could tap into this type of, I don't know what you want to say, perspective, this type of energy. So I found a couple playlists, and shoot, I'll link them in the description or something if you have this deck and want to check it out. But I found a playlist that was really perfect. I did not know dream pop was a thing. I didn't realize it was like actually a genre, which I feel dumb saying that, but it's the truth. I thought it was just something people called playlists on YouTube now and again. But no, it's actually a category of music, and it pairs so beautifully with this. I would play like either one of the two playlists that I like best and pull out this deck and just light. I had a specific candle that has kind of like a petrichor floral situation going on with it. So it was like both fantasy floral and earthy, you know, soil type of a vibe. And so it just really, everything worked together to create a synergistic vibe. And I still love turning to this when I'm in that mood to get that music going. And what's nice is dream pop kind of has this light ethereal thing going on, right? So even when I did a reading one time that was supposed to be, like I said, a light Sunday reading, and it wound up uncovering or untangling my karmic patterns, which was more intense than I was going for. That Sunday evening where I just wanted to chill. But that's what came through. So I was like, all right, yeah, that's what we're talking about tonight. Okay, let me load up a new pen because I'm going to run out of ink. But having that kind of music in the background kind of offset it a little bit, where it was just, it felt like teenage hanging out in a room, in your room, and just like listening to music, making art, writing in your journal. Like it felt like teenage. I don't know why. It just, that wasn't even music I listened to really back then, I don't think. But it just put me in such a good summer headspace, even when it was a hard reading. And for some reason, the combination of candle and music and these decks was a total vibe. So I really like Dreamgate Oracle. It's definitely different than anything I have. You know, you get your keyword and some additional keywords. Oh yeah, I hope that was in focus this whole time. Okay, good enough. I just found them to be a really cool combination. I think this with other decks was more soft, but this deck is kind of like a straight shooter. Not even just a straight shooter, but like above and beyond shooter. It just wants to talk about serious stuff, yo. It's the hero's journey. Like, I don't know. That was just what was coming up for me. I didn't read with this for like 3 weeks straight or something like that, so it just was in the rotation, and I really liked this pairing. So yeah, I mean, they look gorgeous together. First of all, this would pair with a lot of things. This one's a little more difficult, though I did like it with Botanica. And there's something else I paired it with that I really liked, but when I figured out that these two look like this together, I was like, oh, we're bonded now. This is what we're doing from this point forward. It feels like a great way to get to know this deck and this deck at the same time. So yeah, that was my pairing. Number 3. But just in case you want to see in the guidebook a little bit, with Danielle, you would get this kind of a write-up where there's this sort of like key chart. You have your little phrases and your keywords, and then you have an explanation kind of the artwork or the idea behind the artwork, and then you have the message. And let me not burn the book. Some journaling questions. So sometimes I would pull from Dreamgate and wind up using one of these questions. Like a few times I didn't pull tarot with it, and I just connected with whatever it was asking me to, right? And then sometimes I would use it to pull tarot cards. A lot of times I would just, I don't know, I treat every guidebook, especially for Oracle, kind of like bibliomancy, where if there's just one sentence that I needed to see in there, even in a sea of 5 or 6 paragraphs or whatever, I just take that as my message. It's just a little bit of a scavenger hunt. That's okay. And then this is Ephemere. So for the majors, which are the redesign thing, you get, like this one's 1, 2, 3 pages, and then counterpoint. Oh, that has a bunch of different options. Yeah, you basically get 3 pages for each of the majors. So it gives you a good amount to dig your teeth into a different system. It's just that, you know, you got to be willing to not necessarily be picking it up and reading with it right away without being inclined to pop open the guidebook. I always like opening a guidebook even when I really know a deck well. And if I see a card coming up in a way where I'm like, that's kind of curious, I like going to the guidebook and finding, again, that one sentence, that one phrase. Maybe it's the word sacrifice used, you know, coming up in all 3 cards, and you didn't think of that particular word, you know, with the standard interpretation or whatever, but the way that the author or artist phrased it in the book has that word, and you're seeing it as a pattern in the reading, because that happened to me once, with the word sacrifice. So I don't know, that just adds something to it. So that is the Dreamgate Oracle by Danielle Noel and Ephemere by was it Arthur Wayne? Oh my gosh. I'll have to, yeah, Arthur Wayne. So I love these together. This is a really beautiful deck. It's minimalist and very intriguing, very luxe in its production. Even if I have a little more trouble shuffling it, it's not something that would hinder me really from actually pulling it out and using it. So And I mean, just look at it. It's gorgeous. And these two looked so beautiful, like, on my altar together as a couple. I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know. I love that. I have crystals for both these decks that I would sit on top of it, and it just made me so happy to see these two decks on my altar, even if they were about to tear me to pieces. It's a good way to deliver a message. You know, tone helps. Tone helps in communication, and in the world of tarot and oracle, the artwork and the aesthetic is the tone. So, on to the next. Oh, I did quickly want to add, the other thing I love about this oracle deck, I love how she writes her books. First of all, the way she structures them and the intro and everything, I really love, even when it's a card where I'm kind of confused what I'm trying to get out of it or what the message for me is. I love the way that she writes, and it's from a perspective that's kind of new to me in a lot of ways, and maybe that's the starseedy stuff, I don't know, but from what I remember having read the beginning of this book, this was done sort of in honor of the Dreamgates of her lucid dreams. So I find that fascinating, and I love exploring that, and that she created artwork to that and then shared that with us. Lucid dreaming is something I would love to get back into the practice of. I was sort of getting there with remembering my dreams, and lately I've just been having a heck of a time doing such a thing on top of everything else. So that's not happened yet. But when I was younger, I did get into lucid dreaming, and I got so far just to the point where you become alert in the dream, you're conscious of the dream, and then immediately I would be like, oh man, it would suck if the walls start closing in. And of course that's what would happen, because manifestation is accelerated in the dreamscape. And yeah, so I didn't quite make it to the part where you get past that and can calm down enough to be there for a moment or two and do something or ask someone a question, which is really what I want to do. I have questions. But, you know, someday. For now, the deck is a reminder. So the next pair was Dreams of Gaia and Sacred Rebels. Dreams of Gaia I've been working with since it was either tail end of spring or like early summer. You can see maybe that I edged mine this kind of blue. It did not come out as neat as I was trying to get it, because I was inspired by someone I saw on Facebook doing it, and she shared what she used, and I think I just maybe rushed. If I go back over stuff, maybe it'll work out and not be very variegated, or you see what I mean? That it's not like completely even. It drives me a little bit nuts because hers looked so perfect, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make it so perfect, and then I didn't. But I love this deck, and I could just try going over all of it again. It took a really long time because it was kind of a laborious application process. So I haven't done it yet because it was already, I had to force myself to get through the first round. So it's been like it is. I'll get to it at some point. And then Sacred Rebels was really something I added later because I didn't get this till like mid or late summer, and I'd already been working with Dreams of Gaia. But I'd been working with Dreams of Gaia just solo because I didn't really like any of the oracles I had paired with it. And then I got this deck and was sort of directed to put them together and was like, oh, shit. Yeah, would not have initially thought that. Let me see how we can set up here. So I found these two together not only art-wise to work really well, but in terms of message, they just were kind of synchronizing well every time that I used them together. So But I also like the artwork together, which I was having a hard time pairing this with anything. Or even this, but more so I was trying to pair this with oracles and was not feeling it. But these together just is a vibe. I love this deck, Sacred Rebels. It's kind of like deep, comforting, empowering work. And I sort of feel the same way with Dreams of Gaia, although Dreams of Gaia to me as a deck like the place it takes in my collection is like very spiritual, very guidance. How else do I explain it? I feel like I'd have to like sit and read through some of my readings I've done with it to really think about how to explain how I view this deck. I have like a spread. I have a couple cards missing from each deck right now because I have a spread that I still need to journal from a few days ago. Life just got a little crazy, so haven't been able to do that. But Dreams of Gaia to me is not, like I wouldn't turn to it for practical inquisition. I mostly turn to it for tell me what you need to tell me kind of stuff. Because I find that the questions I would ask it that suit the way that it reads for me would be more lofty than any kind of ground level practical thing. They're more spiritual or psychological or soulful type of cards to read with is how I feel about them. I think I have read with it for practical things, and it's not that it doesn't. I'm just like, but it wants to say so much more. Like, it wants to go somewhere else, somewhere deeper. And so, why not? Who am I to say no? And the way that these work together has just been really awesome. I love the fire suit. I love the structure of Dreams of Gaia. For me, it is tarot or tarot oracle, whatever. Tarot oracle? I can't say that word. So it's tarot for sure, partially because I can't pronounce the other thing. But to me, it's like I figured out the structure, and also I find the minors to be more numerological in a classical sense that makes sense to me. Because sometimes Rider-Waite does something a little different, where it's like some of the fours are more negative right off the bat, and some of them are more positive. And with these, I kind of find it more neutral in the numbered cards. I look at it that way, more neutral to positive. And then if it's just coming up in a way where it would be sort of the negative polarity of that energy, I just go in the other direction. So I was thinking of doing a video kind of explaining my thoughts and my understandings that I've come to with Dreams of Gaia, and I had like a lot of steam to do that at one point, and I kind of don't now. Not that I don't want to do it, it's just I have like a bunch of other videos on my list. But if people wanted to see that, like, let me know. Maybe that'll make me more like, I just want to explain it, because if you just look at it this way, and then I just would go off on a whole tangent. So probably just need to sit down and start showing you. I actually got the pocket size version of this deck not mostly, but partially because I wanted to be able to explain it. In order to do that, I need to lay the cards out, and in order to do that, I'm probably going to need to be on the floor. But even with that being the case, I'm probably going to need the mini version to lay everything out the way that I visualize the system. Because that's something that really helped me when I got this deck. There's like, I have a whole playlist of videos I've saved that I think is public about Dreams of Gaia, and those were all videos I watched and listened to other people speaking to how they experienced the cards and saw the structure. And then I kind of worked out my own and was like, okay, this is cool. I really like this. The one thing, I don't have the guidebook here. I love the guidebook, but sometimes I veer off of it, or sometimes I veer Sometimes when she's explaining the card, it gets a little more into a specific situation, and I just want the root of the energy so I can like overlay it onto what I'm asking or the message that's coming through. And I don't know how to explain it. I'm gonna have to think of a good metaphor and come up with that and share it at some point, because on the spot I don't know how to explain it. But so sometimes I veer off the guidebook as much as I love it and still do the same thing where I look for that specific message in there. A lot of times I'm just really using this as a elemental numerological chakra, incorporating chakra stuff. Like I'm looking at it just from that perspective sometimes. And these cards, of course, I either go to the book or I just, abundance is abundance. You can go wherever you want to go with that, and same with perception. Oh, that's a cool spread. But yeah, I loved these two together, and Sacred Rebels is a pretty good classic. I will say my copy, which is pretty new, I don't know if you can see that the cut on it is not 100% flush and regular, and I've been debating if I want to give a go at fixing it, because I do have a lever cutter situation. I can't think of the word for it right now, because it does affect the shuffling a bit. Otherwise I wouldn't care, but it does. I have to be careful because it feels a little chunky in the waterfall, and I don't know, I don't want to mess it up, but it is kind of, dang, I mean, you can see it. There's some cards that are just not quite flush. I don't know what happened there, but 'tis what it is. This deck is very deep and profound. Oh, I should get the guidebook. I will do that just in case. I mean, this one's a deck that's been around. I feel like people are going to know it, but just so you could see like an example page of what a card reads like. 1 second. Okay, so Dreams of Gaia, just so you get a feel for that. For the majors, you get your keywords, your key phrases, your meaning. You can pause and read it if you want. And then you usually get quite a lot of writing, and you get a past, present, future. I mean, look at all of that for present. And look at, you get a lot to dig into. So especially for the major suit, I love that. The minors, it can, sometimes be like this, where it's one page, and sometimes it's a bit more. Well, yeah. Sometimes it's a bit more. But it just depends on the card. And like I said, the way that's worked for me the most is looking at it very numerologically, elementally, and then so I just veer sometimes if I decide I want to. But this is a really beautiful book, and I like that it's also like nicely made. That's something I really like with Blue Angel, is they do their books kind of nice. Now, Sacred Rebels can also be something that's pretty meaty to dig into. You can get quite a few pages for each card. And then the other thing is, each card has a healing process, which is really cool. I haven't always done it every time I pull from Sacred Rebels. Like, I'm pretty sure my card was against the grain. So let's see. Did I do that? I don't think I did. Yeah, so this is a sort of a meditation thing. So I haven't, when it's a meditation thing, it's kind of pretty hard to do unless it's really brief and I can just memorize it quickly. But I have trouble with this if I didn't like make a little recording for me to be able to use as a meditation based on this. But that's something you could do. Like, you could pull out one card and then have that be your goal for the week, is just at some point to record the little meditation, maybe, and then be able to listen to it and go through it and actually do it. I mean, this one I maybe wouldn't need to do that. Maybe I would. I don't know. It'd be easier too. I wouldn't have to feel the impulse to like peep my eye open and look in the book again, you know? But this is a pretty profound deck. Sacred Rebels kind of lives up to its name. It's about, you know, kind of authenticity and pushing that boundary into authenticity. And the biggest energy I've been working with definitely since spring, pretty heavily, and even before that, is Queen of Wands energy. And so this deck just spoke to me on that level. And I think we might be getting into my favorites right now. Like my hands down, I loved all of these decks, but the decks that changed my practice this summer, I think we're doing that next. Something I totally forgot to mention with Dreams of Gaia, actually, this deck really helped me break an intuitive barrier that I was kind of having trouble leaping into comfortably, and stepping out of like feeling the need to have rote meanings for things. And Raven in the back of the book, oh, I love this card so much. I love meditating with this card for inner temple work. Raven has in the back of the book that like even her own meanings are just a reflection of the stationary moment of that time that she wrote it. And, you know, all of the meanings are welcome to evolve, you know, in your own practice, in your own way. And her own would probably evolve if she were to write the book again, you know, at a later point in time. And I don't know why, it's just like getting that permission from the artist to kind of do that made it so much easier for me. And it's also the artwork made it easy for me in a way to just kind of go with my intuition. Now, there's some cards that are not my favorites. Like these two are not my favorite cards. But that doesn't mean I don't read anything into them. And in general, I love the artwork. So even my least favorite cards, like I like the artistry. This is one of my favorites. And this is one of my favorites. 7 and the 8 of fire. I also love this one as like the actualization type thing. This was the first card I think I pulled, and that hit me deep. I love the imagery. I wound up getting like, not only just reading the guidebook, but I wound up digging into the idea of the mask and the feathers around her wrist and the symbolism of the dragonflies and what that meant and how that tied in. And then even this thunder in the background, and then she's crying tears. Like there's a lot going on in this image that's really struck me. And that's the 5 of air. It hits differently than the 5 of swords in tarot, but it's still this conflict, and it's a conflict of mentalized identity and like, I don't know. It was just really deep, and I would have to reread that journal entry, but I remember it just hit me in such a way where I was like, whoa. This deck, like I used to think I would not connect with it, and then I found out that it's in this matte version now, like Blue Angel matte cardstock, and I was like, oh dear, that looks completely different for some reason to me. In matte, it looks completely different, and I'm like, that's exactly up my alley. But when I saw it glossy, I was like, oh, that's not a deck for me. And it's just really funny, because this is another one that's probably, like if I could only keep 5, or let's say, yeah, if I could only keep 5 decks, it would probably be in there. I also, like even the child card is like, so it's like the child on a pedestal with, like, it just gives me feels somehow. And, you know, it's different for everyone. I know this is sometimes like regarded as a hard deck to connect with or figure out how to work with because it's its own system. But that combined with what she said at the end of the book, I love this card, oh my god. I just felt like I had the freedom to really run with it and feel into it. And it's helped me like looking up symbols when those are relevant. Like he's wearing a hawk. I mean, I don't need to even look that up because this card's like one of the clearest to me. But even looking up different elements and thinking about, okay, what does the sword here symbolize? Or what about these 3 doors with 2 closed eyes? Is that 2? Oh, 1 open blank eye, 1 open eye, and then is that a closed eye? I don't even know. I haven't really paid attention to that part too much. But then we have the snake, the torch, the apple, the running water coming from the tears. Like, there's a lot to dig into with the symbolism and the imagery that sometimes I read into it more than what's in the book about it. It's sort of like it's coded, and you can just decode it as you want to decode it. And yeah, so this deck and we had a time. I'm keeping this one out. Okay, I almost forgot to show this one, the Curious Travels Tarot. This one mostly used in spring, but I did work with it throughout the summer here and there. Especially because out of all the decks, it's probably the most like close to a standard tarot, if you will. I paired it with a few different things. I wound up getting Phases and Poesis Oracle at some point, and I really loved it with that, but I only pulled with those like a couple times, and then I got wrapped up in other things. So I didn't work with it that way as much as I would have liked, but this deck in general I've been working with for months, and I really love it. This is the indie edition. It's now available mass market, but she might still have indie available. With the mass market, the borders are quite a bit bigger, and that's not really my jam. And I also really do love the cardstock and the fact that there's this beautiful matte gold glinting situation going on each of the cards. I love the color palette. It reads beautifully. And yeah, also the court cards. I love all the different court cards in this deck. Look at Unjustice, how her skirt has the fringe in gold. I just really love it. It feels like as far as like a close to RWS classic type deck, it's my favorite, probably out of my collection. I have Tarot Muha. I mean, this veers off obviously in its own way, but I love that it's modern but not too modern. I love the elephants for Ten of Pentacles and the legacy and lineage and everything about that. Orca, teamwork, working together, like, I don't know. And the Queen of Wands. I love this deck so much. It's very beautiful. It's one of the few decks that I have ever bought a backup of, because I knew that the indie edition was going out of print. So I was like, okay, I might just. She also was selling it and might still be, if there's any available, might still be selling it for like a really good price. Steeply discounted. So I'll throw links where I can remember. I just love this deck, and it's very summer spring. And I love this actually is the extra card, and it doesn't specifically have a meaning per se. But I really loved it and keeping it in here, and kind of the idea I came up with it, like all these different exploring souls, like all the different pages almost, exploring things in their own way from their own perspective, and how you can do that from like within a room. You can go on explorations and expeditions. And I'm such an introvert that I just was like, I love the vibe of this. So it's come up a few times for me. And then the Hermit. So yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite decks. And I loved working with it. I love that it's watercolor. I feel like it pairs best with watercolor type decks because of that. But the other one that it looked really nice with was Sacred Destiny, is that the name of that one? Kind of that classic Oracle deck that a lot of people, I think at this point, have. Paired really nicely with that. And this is a rose petal finish, but for me, shuffles beautifully. I don't have problems with it. I can't remember if I ever dusted it, but if I did ever powder it up, it was only like once. So it's been all around a deck I really love. Cardstock I quite enjoy. And yeah, so now we're on to the last set, which pushes this all over 10 because there's 2 oracles I paired with this next tarot deck, and they kind of just all synergistically work together. And they're also the decks that are carrying me into the dark half of the year, because I think they're just going to be a foundational year-round part of my practice. But I found them this summer, and they changed the game for me, so to speak, in terms of my journaling and the work I'm doing and everything with tarot. So on to that. Okay, so finally we are at the last 3 decks, which pushes this list over 10. But these 3 decks pretty much I work with together all the time. So, and I have been since I got this one, which was about it was probably close to 2 months ago. Whenever it came out, I've been working with this one since then. But yeah, this is the Tarot of the Huntress. I love the backs. It's a found art deck. It's by Kara Small here on YouTube. She has an Etsy shop. I will link it. I wound up buying a backup of this because it's one of those decks that I don't want to ever have to live without. So just in case. I love this Ode to Artemis on the back. I read this every time I get started working with these cards, working with Artemis. But it's a beautiful linen finish in terms of like the actual cardstock. It's like really nice and flexy, but it's great quality. And like I said, I found art deck, and she did such a great job making selections for the artwork. It comes with a PDF guide so that you can look up the artworks and just a little blurb about it or describing it. I also really love the queens. Now, Queen of Wands, I've been working with that energy for a while now. The fact that it's on the front of the deck, the fact that I like, probably of the queens, this is my favorite art-wise. And she just did a really great job picking them, and picking all of these images. Like, I don't know. I hooked in with this deck so quickly. And the readings that I've done with it have been some of the most profound. And part of it is because I'm working with it alongside this idea of kind of creating a workshop based around the book Women Who Run with the Wolves. And it's been crazy working with these 3 decks, reading that book, and the synchronicities and the way that they're almost communicating with each other has just been next level. There's been more than one occasion where I end up at night just staring at the ceiling thinking, what the hell just happened? How did that happen? How did I just do a reading and then I open the book to the next part that I'm about to read and it's all about that? Or how did I get the nudge to look ahead at chapter 12 and read just a few pages of that, and then I do a reading and it's all about that? It's like bizarre, but to me it just means that they're meant to be worked with together. Now, the 2 oracle decks that I've worked with this tarot with is the W.I.T.C.H Oracle. This one pairs perfectly thematically, both in terms of that book, in terms of Artemis energy. This is a lot about sovereign and having total control over yourself and all that. So the energy and themes in this deck tie in beautifully working with Artemis, and they also tie in beautifully reading this book and kind of using it as inspiration for a little personal workshop, a personal journey. For example, one time I pulled the time that I was compelled to go to a random chapter and read the myth in that chapter. It was about rage, and it also mentions Crescent Moon Bear in the story. And then I go to pull a spread, and the first card I get, I doubt I could find it right now, but was Harpy of Rage. And I was like, wait, what? And then I go pulling from the tarot deck, and one of the cards was Ace of Water, which is a bear, a white bear. And the book, the book and the myth in that book was talking about crescent moon bear and needing to get this little white hair off the crescent moon of this bear's chest. And it just like all like synergistically worked together. The other thing, wow, that one card's not gonna come up. You know how it is. The other thing that I love about these decks together is that I have found more so with these decks than any other that they start to like arrange in terms of the figures and the directions that are happening in a way that just adds a whole other layer to the reading. And you know, it's always good when you're pulling cards and laying out a spread to look at directionality. That's always something to be able to read into, especially if something stands out. But I have had it happen more with these decks than any other situation. I'll put up a picture now. There was one I did where there were all these figures looking into the past and then the one looking forward. And it was just like, oh, okay, that adds so much to this reading right now, to where I've had to oftentimes take days to process a reading, sometimes because it just was so synchronistic that I was like, okay, as much as I believe in this stuff, I need a minute to come back down to earth because that's nuts in a really cool way. But yeah, it can be a lot to process at first, but now I'm like used to it and I just am so bonded with these three. They also are going to extend beautifully into the dark half of the year. I'm probably just, these are going to be decks that I work with year round. Artemis is someone I work with year round, so they're probably just going to carry through forever. But going into the dark half of the year, it feels like this is a great transition into that. So I'm very much looking forward to that. To keep working with these, to keep working through and kind of figuring out this sort of workshop-y type thing that I've been doing and see where that goes, because it's been the most profound aspect of working with cards that I've gotten into yet. And yeah, I dig it. The other thing with Artemis, I've danced around a connection with her for years now. Back in the early days of when I was making jewelry, the first necklace that I made that felt like it was in alignment with the type of work I really had been wanting to get to was the Artemis pendant. And that one remained a favorite, like, among people when I was still selling stuff. So, and I might, I'll get to when I'm going to relaunch all of that at some point when I can give a more concrete answer. Life has just been funky. But that will definitely be one of the pieces that is a forever part of my collection. This is the only funny card in this deck. It's cute and I love it in here, but it does stand out, obviously. But it's like a really playful, cute message to throw in with this. And Obsidian Oracle is all kind of like natural elements otherwise. It's an animal and a crystal usually, or an animal and a plant. And the guidebook for it, I don't have it right here, but maybe I'll throw up a couple pictures. The guidebook for it is short and sweet, and I love that the first part of it is just talking about what the elements in the card are, and then the last part gives you a message, and then there's just simple keywords at the very top. It has always aligned really well with these other two. And I think I started saying this, but what I usually do is pull from W.I.T.C.H Oracle. I'll pull 2 from Tarot of the Huntress, and then I usually at this point I'm also pulling 2 of Obsidian sort of as clarifiers, but they end up being more, they clarify in the sense that they make me more specifically sure of what the tarot card is coming up to say. But they also usually offer a thread of wisdom or guidance. I don't know how to explain it. It's like more than just a clarifier, I would say. But I love how they all work together. Sometimes I also will just pull 2 of these cards and 1 of these when I don't want to do like a whole deep thing into which oracle, because this one is like more of a big theme rather than a subtle message. But yeah, they just pair so beautifully. This card came up at the bottom of this oracle deck when I had just read a chapter that was actually about rage. That was the Harpy of Rage came up from this deck, and underneath was Predator, and that all tied in to what I had been reading. It was bizarre. I'm pretty sure I texted a friend about it and was like, what in the world is happening? This is next level. So they're meant to be pairing. All 3 bonded. No one's going anywhere. Tempted to get a backup of this one because this is mass market. I'm a little less nervous about it going anywhere, but this one isn't. And the artwork on it is so beautiful. I don't know if you're going to be able to get a really good look at it. I'm actually upgrading my phone not too long from now, so maybe in the future, if I do a video about the 3 of these and the work I've done, it'll be easier to see them in better detail. It's also not the best lighting right now. The artwork is gorgeous. It's very detailed. But yeah, that's the 3 of these, and that was my whole list of decks I worked with this summer. And hopefully I included little details about how I worked with them or what I liked about them and all that. I can't remember. It's been a few days since I filmed like the whole first part of this thing. So I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much for watching. This was a long ass video, but is what it is. Next one, I will make it shorter. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is by you, and see you next time.